One of the things absolutely necessary to keep the scapegoat role in place and keep scapegoats in place is fear. And that comes with threats and blackmail and all sorts of other heinous stuff. So this video is about how to work through the fears that come from the threats of others, the blackmails and all the rest of it, so that you can find that life of joy, happiness, fun, and a freedom from, well, the bondage of the fear. You won't necessarily get over the fear, but you can work through it, find others, find escaped goats, and put down the baggage of the past, find a joy and a fun in life that we're all looking for. My name is Mark, this is The Emotional Alchemist. If you're a scapegoat, empath, or black sheep trying to escape those roles, then you may want to watch more videos like this. If you do, hit the subscribe button and the little bell icon, you'll be notified of new videos. So for me, in these last few years, I've received a lot of threats and blackmail from people I couldn't even imagine would happen. It's like every kind of person in my entire life has come out of the woodwork from way back when to somehow bully and coerce me into their way of, into basically who they want me to be as I become more, because the escaped goat path is in becoming my true self. For us, it's in becoming our true selves, allowing myself to turn up in the world and be seen for the way I truly feel, to express my truth. Now, if you, when you were young, there were parts of you that were unacceptable, whether that was you weren't allowed to feel fear or sadness or shame or anger or whatever it was, then the easiest way for you for you to be manipulated back then, or molded, shall we say, imprinted, is through fear, through threats. Now that may back then be really hard threats, or it may just be little threats. It's like, if you don't do this, then you'll lose this, or whatever it was. Now, some of that is just the way it happens, and other stuff is done in a way with more of a patriarchal energy that we see these days. Men and women who seek to dominate others because they, but using fear and shaming and anger and aggression. For me, this isn't the word may have had a male meaning in the past, but for those, it means men or women that use that energy. I was abused equally by men and women, and it's so what word should I use if I can't use patriarchy? Anyway, that's my explaining why I use patriarchy for men and women. It's an equal opportunity role, as indeed the scapegoat role is an equal opportunity role. It's we don't choose it. Now, we can choose to walk out of it. That's a long, heavy road, because basically the scapegoat's role is to die. It's a long, heavy road away from that heavy, put down the baggage, their baggage. The tribe would project their sins onto the scapegoat, and all of those stuff they couldn't handle, fears, and he was made, she was made to carry them out into the desert and die. The scapegoat's job is to die, and so that path from, which is the dark night of the soul, the spiritual awakening, that finding of the true self, it's about leaving that, going alone on the path, being alone. And that's one of the hardest things for scapegoats, because actually so many of us believed and still can believe that those people that we include in our lives that cause us pain, but we figure that it's better off than being alone. I hear this from so many people I speak to. It's like, yeah, but it's kind of, it's better than the alternative. Well, that's because there's fear about the alternative, and people will always seek to dominate you through fear by basically saying that's what's going to happen, and that brings up this kind of visceral, energetic kind of skin crawling, crushing, whatever feeling, and it's designed that way. They need you to be energetically manipulable. Otherwise, you're not going to do their will. I mean, if some random person comes up to you on the street and says, hey, I need you to insert insane whatever request here, you most likely go, no. But if some person in your life where there is some sort of unequal power dynamic says, will you do this otherwise, or whatever it is, then you may more easily do that. And the real question is, in what is the right thing for me to do in order to do an action or not do an action and remain whole and not give myself away? Can I, because actually true gifting or charity to others is both people benefiting. And that's the hard thing. It's like, okay, how can I be generous to other people and still look after myself? That's difficult. But at the same time, it works the other way. It's like, how do I know when I'm on the other end of that dynamic? Because actually getting in touch with my body, and I've been doing this for a couple of years now, I was so dissociated from my body because early on in my life, I realized that to feel was to be in pain. So it's better just to think and not, I call it cutting the corners off my true self. It's like, it's easier somehow to be someone else rather than to be a target. My channel here has been in learning self-expression and just being able to speak about those parts of me that I find unacceptable, the fears, the shame, the anger, the guilt, the sadness. Woo, there's so many of them. And I realized what came into my mind is someone saying, Mark, you speak too fast. And it's true sometimes. I forget to breathe. And but when I can pause, come back into my body and go, especially when I'm interacting with others, and go, what's really going on in my body? Because if I can know how my physiology is, like how fast my heart is beating, whether my skin is kind of feeling hot or flustered or whatever it is, how am I emotionally, what's going on, and how fast are my thoughts? This for me is emotional alchemy. All of this is guidance about to show me my path to my true self. Because then, as I'm interacting with someone, this happened the other day in I was in a cafe, and there was a new manageress, and I've been going to this cafe for years, and she was very aggressive, and I could feel myself changing in a kind of the becoming submissive, I guess, in a slightly my energy pulling back somewhat, and I was like, became aware of it in my body, and I just simply looked her in the eyes in a kind of with an easy kind of gaze, and then immediately the whole dynamic changed because they say that the eyes show so much. It's like, and I find this with so many people, I've learned to be able to have eye contact because and there was always this shame. I would always look away, and it was and those people that really trust each other we can look each other in the eye, and this isn't a staring. It's not the narcissist stare, which I've seen a couple of times, because actually, it's looking someone in the eyes and is intimate in the sense of actually genuine connection, which is why it's so terrifying for some people, because it also shows you whether or not I'm a threat or they're a threat. And it's like, because if someone is intensely kind of you're gonna die, kind of staring you out in the eyes, or if someone's just kind of being present, it's a completely different form of energy. And actually, a wonderful thing I've learned is those people who have a very much harder energy, and often, as you're walking into a room, whatever it is, and someone's staring you out, and you can nod at them, and if they don't do anything, they're just staring you out like this. It's like after a couple of seconds again, just nod at them again without changing eye contact, without changing facial expression. And it's hilarious because 90% of the time, someone who is this hardcore staring energy will either turn away or just shrug it off somehow, because the second nod creates such a level of intensity. Don't do this with insane people, psychopaths, and all the rest of it, because actually they may just flip out. And they may flip out anyway. You're dealing with insane people and psychopaths. But I find so much is about being aware of my energy and just being able to greet people with who I really am. Being able to have genuine conversations with people, because actually, this going back to it, these days we're told we're manipulated through fear. We're told that the person sitting next to us on the bus or on the tube, on the underground, on the metro, on the plane, whatever it is, that there is a 97% chance they're an axe murderer at some point in their life. Okay, I made that up, but it's like that's the kind of stuff that sells newspapers. But actually, in my travels on my lonely goat path in this last 3 years, I've spoken to literally thousands of strangers, and 80% of the time there's this amazing connection. And it's 3-minute conversations with whoever, wherever. I was on the metro and I remember speaking to this woman for it was like 40 minutes. It was amazing. Didn't know her, and all I literally did was sat down opposite and I said, "Hey, how you doing?" And that started a 40-minute conversation with someone who's much older than me and completely different to me in so many ways. And the metro is hilarious. There's just this one time I remember I was wearing my baseball cap, and it was reasonably crowded, and this older gentleman, he wasn't that old, he was about 60, in a pinstripe suit with an umbrella and kind of briefcase and all this kind of stuff. He was obviously some sort of financier or in that world. He walks down the carriage and he steadies himself on my head. And this woman, another woman, is looking at me opposite, just waiting to see what I'm going to do. And this guy's not even conscious that, I think he's just not there, because he just carried on down the carriage. He's probably he looked amazing in the suit, and I just look at this woman and I just start laughing, and she starts laughing, because it's the most bizarre thing in the world. And what do I want to do? Do I want to say to this guy, "Hey, what on earth are you doing resting your hand on my head?" But let's find the funny thing in that, because that's just bizarre. I'm not taking that personally at all. And I don't have to make fun of him because he didn't even seem conscious that he'd done it. The more connection I can find with others, the more that connection I can find in myself, be aware of my energy. And I find a flow in life like that. And it's not because there's not scary things. It's not because I don't get threatened all the time. It's not because I don't get blackmailed. I wasn't always a monk and recovering addict. I spent however many years completely unconscious of what I was doing. So, and I've spent the last 14 years trying to make good on all of that crap that came before, understand my shadow, why I was out of line with who my higher self and who I truly want to be. The more I can understand that, the physical, the emotional, the mental, the more I can be aware of my energy, understand how, if I'm affected when I'm interacting with people that have a nefarious kind of intent, and be aware of those people who are joyous and wonderful and kind of have the same energy as me, have experienced the same kinds of things as me, and want the same kinds of things as me in life. Those are the tribe. And if I can distinguish between the two, if I can learn energy, learn to read energy, then I find far more friends and more tribe members, more scapegoats, and we all kind of head towards this, building this beautiful world that we all want. And it's the stronger we become with each other, that because we're told the easiest way to control people is to fracture them from each other. The more we trust each other and understand and give forgiveness for each other and find that kindness. Someone suggested to me that kindness to another is easier than forgiveness, because forgiveness is extremely hard sometimes if we've been hurt really badly. I'm like, yeah, I can do that. I can be kind to those people I haven't forgiven yet. Not allow them to, not allow abuse to take place. That's the boundaries. But not have to hate them either. To understand that we're all, genuinely, I think we're all trying to find happiness. However we do that, we do it in 1,000,000,000, 6 billion different ways. The more I can do it, the more I find a flow in life. The more of you guys I find. Thank you for everything you say. Thank you for your comments. If you enjoyed this video, and I'll be amazed if however many of you made it to the end of this. If you share it, I'd be super grateful, because actually then other people are going to find it, and we'll have more scapegoats, and there'll be a bigger tribe, and we'll have more fun and that kind of stuff. My name's Mark, the Emotional Alchemist. This is another scapegoat video. Thanks for watching.